This might be the greatest off-screen death I think I've seen in anime, at least in some time, and it's kind of like a double whammy of how much you can enjoy it. If you only watch today's episode of Eminence in Shadow, it's quite hilarious, because after the credits, we hear Delta howling, the oil field is just blown apart, destroyed, chaos has erupted after not really knowing what happened with the whole Juggernaut fight. But there's these like little chibi shorts that I think every single week the Katakawa channel, and you can use YouTube's closed captioning for the subtitles, and you get to have some little fun gags. Well, if you watch that, we get to see just how quick and abrupt the death of Juggernaut actually was, because basically Delta, being the airhead that she is, forgets like even who she's looking for, casually cuts off the man's head, and all's well that ends well. That's literally how quickly they handled that, and that might be the most Eminence in Shadow off-screen death I think I've ever seen, as Sid has to navigate the lies of what happened to her and why things are occurring. Full live reaction to today's wonderful Eminence in Shadow episode over on my Patreon. If you would like to see that, it's over there if you're interested. Now, this is an interesting episode because they pretty much set Sid up in a way that he kind of has everything he wants, at least at face value. I mean, the whole idea of the counterfeit money and how basically, you know, the exchange, do people really want to carry a giant bag of gold around, or would they like light paper money? But it's a whole new situation, and people are going to want to withdraw, especially if things start to feel a little rocky. And the idea of this counterfeit money, the mass production of it, in order to exchange it for all of the gold in a vault, and I mean, there is a lot, like that is retirement money. That's retirement money for your kids, and just the fact that Sid, it's such a funny situation because he looks at this company, looks at Shadowguard and what they've made as them stealing his ideas and basically, you know, profiting off of him, but he allows it, right? He's like, you know what, I'll come up with my own ideas in order to get rich. He could ask them for any amounts of money and they would give it to him without even questioning it, right? Because they worship the ground he walks on. But the idea of this situation going so well for him at face value, you just know it's probably gonna end in a situation where all that money's most likely gonna be given back and he's gonna get caught up into a misunderstanding. Maybe it's gonna be like Alpha and the gang are gonna be like, oh, you did this all on purpose, you made this whole new John Smith identity because you wanted to expose so-and-so, but you had no interest in actually screwing over the economy, and he'll just have to sit there smiling and be like, yep, it may not go exactly like that, or maybe not even close to that, but that's entirely a possibility with how things are going. But either way, I like the idea of how they're handling the economy side of things without making it feel like a lesson at school, right? It'd be very easy for a show like this to make it feel like they're trying to, you know, just show us the political side of things in a way that could be considered boring to many, but they have just enough substance to really make it pop out, to make it feel like it's well thought out, but also it's entertaining first and foremost. And we have two fights in this episode that are pretty fun. The first one goes a lot quicker, which is Delta versus, of course, John Smith. And the longer one is Alpha versus John Smith. Now, Delta, I love how she sniffs him out almost immediately. Like, she literally huffed the scent and was like, master, head pat me, please. But we did get some fun little action bits. I mean, he's just casually reading his book or writing in his journal, and she just comes crashing in. He's dicing the whole train up like it's made of shredded cheese at that point. And the idea of just how quickly we go from her being sent on a mission to kill him to being like, master, what's going on? And all he has to do is give her a couple of head pats, say, good girl, now here's the real mission. I override everyone, go do this. And of course they have some fun because, you know, from everyone else's point of view, she either abandoned her mission or she's dead. Like, there's no in between with what would happen, and they can't believe that Delta would be someone to abandon her mission, so therefore the natural response is she's dead, and that doesn't look good. And I was like, shit, man, did she not make it back from that fight? Like, what's going on? But of course, you know, Sid has navigated multiple personalities here, between John Smith to Shadow to the average young man or mundane man, right? Like, the fact that he has all these different personas going on, and the way the lies continue to build up as like a snowball effect, at some point the snowball's gonna crush him and he's gonna just be tumbling, and somehow, despite having all of his bones broken, the Shadow Guardian will look at him and say, damn, Sid, what an amazing plan. We can't believe just you purposely destroyed your body for the greater good. And he'll just have to sit there smiling saying, yep, absolutely. In the Chuny room, basically having to go over everything. It is clever. I mean, I like the idea of using languages from his own world and basically using that to keep his notes private, whether that's a recipe or something actually important. It's kind of a clever way in order to keep certain secrets. You've seen it in different series. I think even Mushoku Tensei did similar things in terms of how they handle certain aspects there. But either way, I like the fact that this is a very well thought out show. Like, it's funny at face value. It's action packed at face value. There's a lot of these finer details that really refine it into what it is. But the biggest, and I think the most exciting fight, was with Elpha. And I assume she probably would be able to spot that it was him as well, but it's a lot different of an experience, and just the idea of how desperate she is to stand by his side, and how, I mean, she starts going Super Saiyan and he's pretty much just saying, bitch, please don't worry about this, I got a plan, stay back. And I wasn't expecting it. It was a very emotional moment for her, and the idea of just the colors and the dramatic shots, I just love the idea of the different fighting styles between how Shadow does it to John Smith. Of course, it makes a lot of sense, especially because he's trying to have a different identity here, but the idea of just how it's a lot different of a flash of combat, and I think it's interesting seeing him go up against Shadow Guard in this way, because at face value, it's either he betrayed us, but even then, they can't stop loving everything he did for him, but at the same time, you know, we get some fun little combat moments, and I'm really not sure where they take the arc from here. Of course, I know we got to deal with the father who's cutting off heads and everything, but at the same time, at face value, Sid has so much wealth. Like, he could literally disappear and go live his retirement Chunin dream if he wanted, but it's all going to crash and burn in some way or spiral into an even crazier arc, and I think it's kind of the fun of Eminence and Shadow. Like, I just never quite know what to expect in an episode. I mean, sometimes Sid is rather relevant, and then other times Shadow Guard's doing all these crazy things. Like, honestly, if you take a step back and forget that we ever have experienced Sid as a character, a lot of what Shadow Garden as a organization is going through, especially with the dual identities at face value, this large company innovating and basically modernizing this world, to then the assassin kind of like sabotage plotline in the background, that's a pretty good story, all things considered. And while Sid is definitely my favorite aspect of the show, and every time he's on screen, whether it's his eyes going back and forth trying to figure out a lie, or his nervous energy, or how he's stammering, it's still nice that they really found a way to make all the other characters' additions to this actually feel pretty good. And while they're not always perfect, certain ones are a little more boring than others, I never really find characters to feel pointless in this show, and it would be very easy given how many waifus can pop up on screen and how they could feel pretty surface level, but in general, they always give them either a funny or badass moment to keep them a little more than just some eye candy, even if certain shots like to keep it on the thigh area or the backside areas, or sometimes the chest areas a little much, but either way, that's the Eminence and Shadow for you. It keeps the spice going, whether you like it or not, and at this point, I just like what they do with this show. But let me know your thoughts and feelings, and what did you think of that little chibi short that Katakawa uploaded today? I thought it was pretty cute. I'm really glad I found it, because I haven't watched all of those, but that one was definitely an enhancement for me for this episode. Let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell so you get notified when I upload more videos to the channel. Like I mentioned, we have a full live reaction over on my Patreon if you're interested. And hey, while you're there, you also get a video shout out like Chris Beck, McLovin408, Hayabusa, Still Zero, Knock Knock, and Natasha Henry are getting today. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.